People say funerals are for closure. Mine was the moment everything opened. I stood in the third row of St. Agnes Chapel, hands folded so tightly my fingers hurt, staring at the closed casket of the woman who raised me when no one else wanted to. The air smelled like lilies and old wood polish, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes long after you leave. My grandmother, Eleanor Grace Whitmore, was gone. And somehow, my entire family looked relieved. I was 27 years old, wearing a black dress I borrowed from a coworker because my mother said, "Don't spend money on something depressing." My heels pinched, my eyes burned, and my chest felt hollow in a way I didn't know how to explain. Across the aisle sat my mother, Diane, perfectly composed. Not a smudge in her mascara, not a tremble in her hands. My Aunt Linda leaned toward her, whispering something that made them both smile. Smile. At a funeral. My cousin Rachel scrolled on her phone like she was waiting for coffee, not burying the woman who paid her college tuition. And then there was Mark, my stepfather, his arm draped protectively around my mother, his jaw set like a man already counting something in his head. Money. They were all thinking about money. Except me. Grandma Eleanor was the only person who ever chose me. When my father died in a construction accident and my mother remarried within a year, I became inconvenient. Too quiet, too sad, too much like my dad. By the time I was 14, I was spending more nights at my grandmother's small Victorian house than my own. She taught me how to cook, how to balance a checkbook, how to look people in the eye when they tried to scare me. Most importantly, she taught me never to let anyone decide my worth. The priest's voice faded into background noise as memories flooded my mind. Grandma humming while shelling peas, her laugh sharp and bright, the way she'd squeeze my hand twice when she meant pay attention. I felt that squeeze now. Only she wasn't there. The service ended quietly. People stood, chairs scraped. I wiped my eyes and reached for my purse when a shadow fell across my seat. Miss Whitmore. I looked up. He didn't belong. Mid-40s, tall, expensive charcoal suit, no grief on his face, just focus. The kind of man who watches rooms, not people. His eyes were calm, assessing like he'd already decided something important. Yes, my voice cracked. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. My name is Jonathan Hale. I was your grandmother's attorney. That alone made my stomach tighten. I need you to come with me, he said. Now. I glanced toward my family. My mother was laughing softly at something Mark said. No one was looking at me. Is something wrong? I asked. Mr. Hale's jaw tightened just slightly. That depends on whether we act quickly. He turned and walked toward a side hallway. Every instinct screamed at me to stay put. Funerals weren't places for secrets. Lawyers didn't pull grieving granddaughters into hallways unless something was very, very wrong. But then I remembered my grandmother's voice. When the moment comes, don't hesitate. I stood and followed him. The hallway was dim, lined with framed photos of saints and donors. Our footsteps echoed as we passed a door marked Private Office. He didn't stop. Instead, he walked to the very end, where a narrow, unmarked door stood half-hidden behind a velvet curtain. It was locked. Mr. Hale removed a key from his pocket and paused, turning to face me. Before I open this door, he said quietly, you need to understand something. What you're about to learn will change how you see your family. I swallowed. They already don't see me. His eyes softened, just for a second. Your grandmother knew that. He unlocked the door. The room inside was dark, lit only by a single lamp on a metal table. The air smelled like dust and cold stone. This wasn't an office. It was more like an old storage room repurposed for privacy. And someone was already there. She stood as we entered. Mid-30s, tailored black suit, hair pulled back tight. Her face was familiar in the way you recognize a person from a dream. Then it hit me. I had seen her once before, years ago, arguing with my grandmother on the phone late one night. Grandma had cried after hanging up. "Who is that?" I whispered. The woman met my eyes. "My name is Claire Whitmore," she said, "and I'm your grandmother's other granddaughter." The room tilted. "That's not possible," I said. "My mom is her only child." Claire let out a bitter laugh. "That's what Diane wants everyone to believe." I looked at Mr. Hale. "What is this?" He gestured for us to sit. I didn't. "Your grandmother requested this meeting take place immediately following her funeral," he said. "Before the reading of the will, before certain people could interfere." Claire crossed her arms. She knew they'd try. My heart pounded. Try what? Mr. Hale opened a leather folder and removed a sealed envelope. "This," he said, "is why your grandmother changed her estate plan 6 months ago." My mother's voice echoed faintly from the chapel, laughing again. Mr. Hale slid the envelope across the table toward me. On the front, in my grandmother's familiar handwriting, were 3 words. "For my brave girl." My hands shook as I picked it up. I broke the seal. Inside was a letter, and beneath it, documents thick enough to choke on. The letter came first. "My sweet girl, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and the wolves are already circling. I am sorry for what I am about to ask of you, but I trust you more than anyone left. Your mother and Mark have been stealing from me for years." My breath caught. Stealing. They thought I was lonely, confused, weak. They were wrong. My vision blurred. There's a room you don't know about, a lock they don't have the key to, and truths they buried long before your father died. Jonathan will explain everything. Do not let them bully you. Do not let them rush you. And remember, quiet girls make the loudest storms. I pressed the letter to my chest, shaking. Claire's voice cut through the silence. "She recorded everything," she said. "Every threat, every forged signature, every time your mother told her she'd put her in a home if she didn't cooperate." My knees went weak. Mr. Hale slid another file toward me. Bank transfers, property deeds, a trust fund quietly moved out of reach, and one locked room, your grandmother's safe room, containing originals your family believes were destroyed. I stared at the documents. This wasn't grief anymore. This was war. And somewhere out there, my mother thought she'd already won. The locked room didn't look dangerous. That was the strange part. No flickering lights, no dramatic shadows, just gray concrete walls, a steel filing cabinet bolted to the floor, and a fireproof safe large enough to hide a body, or a lifetime of secrets. My lifetime, it turned out. Mr. Hale closed the door behind us and turned the deadbolt. The sound echoed through me like a starting gun. "This room," he said, "was installed 22 years ago, paid for in cash. Only 2 keys exist." He held one up. "And the other?" I asked. "In your grandmother's casket," Claire said softly, "buried with her." I let out a shaky breath. She really didn't trust them. "No," Mr. Hale said. "She trusted you." He opened the safe. Inside were neatly organized folders, labeled in my grandmother's tidy handwriting. Dates, names, account numbers, USB drives sealed in plastic. A velvet box sat in the corner. Mr. Hale removed the first folder. "Let's start with the theft." He laid out copies of checks made payable to Mark. Cash withdrawals signed with shaky versions of my grandmother's name. Loan documents using her property as collateral, documents she never approved. "They drained over $800,000 in 10 years, he said. "Slowly, carefully, enough that your grandmother noticed, but not enough to alert the banks immediately." My hands clenched. "I thought she lived modestly because she wanted to," I whispered. "She did," Claire said, "but they were accelerating near the end, pressuring her, threatening to move her into assisted living." I remembered my mother's voice at Thanksgiving. "Mom's getting forgetful. We might need to step in." I felt sick. Mr. Hale opened another folder. "This," he said, "is the part she wanted you to hear last." He slid a small recorder across the table and pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room. Sharp, cold. Sign it, Mom, or I swear I'll tell Lily the truth about her father. I froze. Another voice, older, trembling, but unmistakable. You leave her out of this. Then sign. The recording clicked off. My ears rang. What truth? Claire looked at me carefully. You deserve to hear it all, but not like this. Mr. Hale nodded. At the will reading, publicly. My stomach twisted. Publicly. Your grandmother was very specific, he said. No private settlements, no quiet forgiveness. She wanted sunlight. The will reading took place 2 hours later in the chapel's reception hall. The entire family showed up early. My mother wore pearl earrings, grandma's pearls. Mark stood beside her like a bodyguard. My Aunt Linda whispered excitedly. Rachel kept checking her phone. They didn't notice the absence of smiles on Mr. Hale's face. Or that Claire sat beside me. Or that I wasn't crying anymore. The room filled, chairs scraped, coffee was poured. Mr. Hale stood. Thank you all for attending, he said calmly. Per Eleanor Whitmore's instructions, this reading will be recorded. My mother's smile tightened. Eleanor Grace Whitmore, he began, leaves behind an estate valued at approximately $3.4 million, including property, investments, and liquid assets. I heard the collective inhale. Mark squeezed my mother's hand. Mr. Hale continued. To my daughter, Deanne Whitmore-Reed. My mother straightened. I leave $1. The room exploded. What? My mother snapped, standing. That's not funny. To Mark Reed, Mr. Hale said, unmoved. I leave nothing. Mark's face darkened. To my granddaughter, Rachel. Rachel perked up. I leave nothing, having already paid for her education in full. Rachel's mouth fell open. To my granddaughter, Claire Whitmore, whom I was forbidden to acknowledge for many years. Gasps rippled. I leave the lake house in Oregon, free and clear. Claire's hand trembled in mine. And finally, Mr. Hale said, turning to me, to my brave girl, Lily Whitmore. My heart thundered. I leave everything else. Silence. Then chaos. That's impossible, my mother screamed. She was manipulated. Mr. Hale raised a hand. Sit down, Diane, or this ends with security. She sat. Barely. Mr. Hale pressed a button. The recording played. My mother's voice filled the room again. Threatening, cruel. Confessing. The truth poured out. Every lie, every forged signature, every manipulation. Then the final recording played. My grandmother's voice. Lily, your father didn't abandon you. He was pushed out. Mark ensured he lost his job. Diane made him look unstable. He tried to come back. My breath caught. They told him you were better off without him. He never stopped loving you. Tears streamed down my face. Mark lunged to his feet. This is slander. Mr. Hale slid documents across the table. Actually, it's evidence. Police officers stepped in from the hallway. My mother screamed my name. Lily, please. I stood. For the first time, everyone looked at me. I loved her, I said quietly, and you used her. My mother sobbed, Mark cursed, Rachel cried. I felt light. 3 months later, I stood on my grandmother's porch. The house was mine now. I kept it just the way she liked, except for one thing. I turned the locked room into a study. Sunlight poured in. Claire lived nearby now. We were learning how to be sisters. Mark took a plea deal. My mother stopped calling. And sometimes, when the house was quiet, I swore I felt a hand squeeze mine twice. Pay attention. I smiled. I was finally ready to live. The end.